Alright. You've read the title, you've seen the thumbnail. The Esports World Cup is in, and the ESL Pro Tour is out. In this video, we're going to explain to you why none of this is surprising, but it is nonetheless going to have a very big impact on the scene. We're going to talk about why the Starcraft 2 scene has gone the way it has, and how important developer involvement, or lack thereof, is in an esports scene for any game, not just real-time strategy or Starcraft. We're also going to talk about the community going forward, the scene and the circuit outside of the Esports World Cup, and how that's drastically going to change, and the scene at its core is going to have a big shift over the next year or two. All right, so let's get into it. First of all, guys, we saw this tweet come out from the Esports World Cup. Old rivalries, new strategies, who will conquer? And they had some cool graphics. You got some music, some sound effects. Boom, 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 boom. Is the clip of Hero the clip of Hero losing his Void Rays? Starcraft 2. That's right, EWC 2025. Picture of the trophy. Riyadh, summer 2025. No specific dates, no information on what the qualifiers will look like, how big the tournament will be, but I imagine it being EWC, it's still going to be pretty damn big. There's a lot of excitement in the responses. People going, oh, woo, even the Starcraft Esports Twitter woke up. I don't know how they woke up the Blizzard from whoever at Blizzard runs this Twitter account, but that's cool. Even they're responding in tweets. A bunch of the top teams are Basilisk, even Nip, Ninjas in Pajamas, Vitality. I mean, that's awesome. Really great news. Unfortunately, on the other side of the coin, at the same time, this was clearly kind of coordinated, as obviously ESL has done a lot of running events here. With them, there was this EPT SC2 discontinued blog post. So we're going to read through this really quickly. It says, important update, dear StarCraft 2 community. Today we are writing to share an important update regarding the future of the ESL Pro Tour, the EPT. After an incredible journey since its inception in 2020, the ESL Pro Tour for StarCraft 2 will not continue in 2025 and beyond. Reaching this decision has been exceptionally difficult for us. Over the years, we've had the privilege of hosting iconic events like the IEM Katowice World Championships, DreamHack Masters, ESL Masters, and ESL Opens, collaborating closely with players, fans, and community members to celebrate this iconic game. However, as the industry evolves, maintaining the full-scale circuit envisioned for the EPT has become increasingly challenging. Nevertheless, there are still great StarCraft 2 esports moments to look forward to in 2025. As you might have already seen, StarCraft 2 is making a return to the Esports World Cup 2025, where a new world champion will be crowned this summer in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Find out more on the official social media channels of the Esports World Cup. Of course, we've already looked at those channels. They've made the announcement. They haven't given us any other info just yet, but I imagine hopefully sooner rather than later, since we're already in April, EWC's in July and August. Around that time, hopefully we get news soon. Now, they've said, look, here's the section on why the EPT is ending. The EPT was built with the goal of creating a long-term sustainable competitive ecosystem for SC2. Strong start of the circuit was supported by key ecosystem stakeholders, enabling a full-scale Pro Tour environment, providing a sense of stability for all involved parties and allowing esports professionals to fully dedicate their careers to StarCraft 2. So for those who don't know, WCS, the official Blizzard system, ended in 2019. And then EPT, the ESL Pro Tour, took over as the main circuit from 2020 until through to the end of 2022. So 2020, 21, 2022, it was a 3-year deal, and they still got funding for Blizzard for that. Not a huge amount of funding. There was a drop in prize pool and different things, but there was some Blizzard support in terms of monetary stuff, as well as Blizzard sometimes even updating the launcher or doing the occasional little thing to actually promote what was going on. So that's what they're referring to with stakeholders. However, securing long-term commitments to fund multiple events across the year became more challenging with time. As of today, we can no longer maintain the comprehensive ecosystem that has defined EPT, a year-long circuit featuring online and live events with high-quality broadcasts, comprehensive regional competition, and regular updates for competitive gameplay. Our team is still proud of the role we played in the StarCraft 2 esports scene over all these years. We remain deeply grateful to the team, players, fans, and everyone else who brought passion and dedication to the Pro Tour. We look forward to seeing talented StarCraft 2 players compete on familiar battlefields this year to qualify for EWC and fight for the next World Championship title. Okay, guys, they actually have a YouTube video. I haven't even watched this. Farewell to the ESL Pro Tour. Let's watch this really quickly. That's me. Me and Maney. That's the finals where my internet cut out during the final game. That was the first finals back after COVID. That was when Reina grew up. We came back. Reina was a kid when we went away for COVID. Came back. Reina was a full-grown man, and that was a sick finals. As far as ZVZs go, that was one of the best ever. What a beautiful moment. That was awesome. I've already looked through this page on stream. I didn't even realize there was a video there. That's beautiful. And that leads us into this thank you. For those who don't know, I think ESL, from working behind the scenes, you know, I got my start casting with them WCS Season 2 2015. As a pro player, when I was coming up and I was still very bad, I somehow fluked qualifying to IEM China. IEM Guangzhou 2011 was my first international event. So I was, you know, events run by ESL were where I got my first international pro experience, getting hammered 0-10 in a group, or 0-6 or whatever it was. I lost every single map. It was where I got my first time casting as well. And I've seen the passion firsthand of these guys behind the scenes. So let's read through here and just take a minute to kind of see what they've got to say. Thank you to our players, talent, partners, and most importantly, the fans. You've made the EPT an unforgettable journey. The energy you bring to every match and every event is what makes StarCraft 2 truly special. Thank you for being a part of this incredible journey. With gratitude, the ESL team. Over the past 5 years, ESL SC2 Pro Tour has featured 78 Masters events, 726 Open Cups, with a total of $6.181 million in prize. We've crowned 5 World Champions, 22 Masters Champions, and 58 Open Cup winners, and had 3,344 unique tournament participants competing in over 48,000 matches. And this is only from 2020 onwards. Remember that they were obviously a big part in running most of the WCS, right? The World Championship Series. There's a word here from Mihai Carmack. He says, I have spent over half a decade working actively on SC2, years more on following it from the sidelines. Back in 2010, it was the game that ushered in a new golden age for esports, and none of the big events we know today would be there if it wasn't for Starcraft. We were in the first ever international SC2 tournament. We operated the last EPT event with nearly 15 years in between. We broke viewership records, filled venues we previously thought unfillable, and we innovated more than ever before. The opportunity to work on this game has given me tremendous learning possibilities, opened up interactions with a number of amazing people that I cannot count, and it's allowed me to be part of and interact with this wonderful community and its creators and curators at Blizzard. I'm not an RTS native, but I fell in love with the game and its community. A massive thank you for all the moments that we've shared together. I am glad we were part of this ride. We've also got a word from Sean Apollo Clark, who was considered the best, or one of the best commentators in the early years of StarCraft 2, and he moved behind the scenes and was a massive voice in improving our shows. You guys have great memories of Katowice over the years and how it leveled up massively. 2016, then 2017, and 2018, it just kept getting better and better. This man was a big partner. He was a big part in us having dedicated people behind the scenes at these big championships whose job it was to grab, just to swap the player camera onto their face at peak moments and catch the human emotion during the games, to try and really capture the players' stories. He was a big person who said, hey, talk about the games, talk about the strategies, but he was also pushing commentators to get better at weaving the story and how important it is for players themselves. For him, it was always about, hey, I know how much these players love the game and I want to translate that to the audience. And he was always a big supporter of us behind the scenes, even in periods when bigger games and things like Counter-Strike were taking the attention of a lot of production and different things. He was always there saying, hey, let's give StarCraft the best experience we possibly can for their viewers, because this game's, really what's launched ESL and this whole esports scene. It was the first kind of stepping stone that pushed up into a lot of these other games kind of ascending so high. He says, look, over the last 15 years, it's more than a game for me. It's provided me with a career, close friends, many memories I'll cherish forever. There's no amount of giving back I could do in return for what I've received. There are many who care deeply about SC2 at EFG. It's not been an easy journey to arrive at the decision taken today. Thank you all for the years of continued passion and dedication to the game and all that you've given to us. We've also got a word from Alexi, aka Alex007, who's kind of been the head Starcraft guy for the last few years. And he says, this announcement is very difficult, very personal to me. I've been with Starcraft 2 Esports since day one. I've been a tournament admin, a journalist, a commentator, project manager, content creator, and a few other roles I've probably forgotten about. I had the incredible honor of shaping the pinnacle of esports Starcraft over the past few years, working with the most passionate and talented team I have ever met. During the darkest days for my compatriots, I had the chance to witness incredibly passionate crowds in Atlanta and Dallas, the warmest welcome for the old school fans in Jönköping and Katowice, the largest prize ever in the history of StarCraft won by Clem last year, who I still remember as a small child attending his first major event, and Oliveira with Smix on the IEM stage, both in tears, creating what feels, to me, like the most magical moment in the history of esports. None of this would be possible without you. Every StarCraft fan who is reading this, your love for the game is what brought these moments to life, and I am incredibly grateful to have been able to share these experiences with you. Thank you for being with us, and let's carry on with our passion for the game we all love. I mean, that's all very emotional and stuff, guys, but let's get back to some of the analysis. I didn't mean to spend so long actually reading through all these posts, but I think that video just hit me with the feels, so I hope you don't mind me getting a bit emotional and just kind of reading through those messages. I do really appreciate what ESL has done for the scene. They're not free of criticism, and you might dislike some things they've done over the years, and some of that's totally fair, you know. They're not immune from criticism, but there's a bunch of passionate people behind the scenes who've just grinded so many crazy hours above and beyond and sacrificed a lot in their own personal lives to bring us what we've had over the last 15 years. So much love to not just these three, but there's so many people in graphics, production, camera work, tournament admins, and everything behind the scenes who just don't get enough thank you. So thanks to you guys. They've got a few frequently asked questions. First of all, why make the decision to discontinue the entire ESL Pro Tour for StarCraft 2 rather than scale it back? We have high standards for the quality of ESL Pro Tour ecosystems. We've delivered on that Premier vision for 5 years. However, we no longer see a sustainable path forward that maintains the quality and scale of competition fans associate with the ESL Pro Tour. As such, we've made the decision to sunset the ESL Pro Tour for StarCraft 2. Makes sense. Look, they probably were saying, look, we could have scrapped together some budget and some support and done something, but would it have been worthy of being the ESL Pro Tour? Number one, not only that, they probably would have got a lot of flack, because if you're doing something that's just getting smaller year after year, everything becomes doom and gloom. Sometimes it is better to just put it to sleep, put it to rest. Who knows, maybe there's some small part of my brain that's like, well, maybe they'll still do some stuff in the future at some point, but obviously we're not holding out hope. We'll see what goes on. Anytime, any idea of there being a huge circuit like this that unites everything is like a big official pro scene, does seem like that has been completely put to rest. And that sort of expectation, professionalism, and just the huge scale of running those events all around the world seems like that has seen its last day, at least from ESL for now in StarCraft 2. Why was this decision made now rather than in 2023 when the funding from Blizzard was discontinued? Despite, I know they don't say from Blizzard, but you know, I'm reading behind the lines here, between the lines, guys, and just trying to give you as much context as possible. Despite StarCraft 2 no longer being an actively supported title, we strive to maintain the title's esports circuit for as long as possible, regardless of funding. However, the lack of financial resources has made it difficult to maintain for the long term, and after much consideration, we decided that it would no longer be sustainable to manage the ecosystem at an ESL Pro Tour level going forward. I think this is really important, but actually, I'll talk about this in a sec. Let's read the next one because it ties in together. Was the decision to discontinue the ESL Pro Tour for StarCraft 2 solely financial, or were there other factors that contributed, such as diminishing viewership or participation? And they say, we're proud of the viewership and participation we've generated through the ESL Pro Tour for StarCraft 2, as well as the ecosystem's role as one of the world's leading year-round hubs for top-tier StarCraft 2 competition. And I think something like, oh, it's a bit of a throwaway answer. I mean, of course, it doesn't get as many viewers as other games. That's why it failed. If it had more viewers, it would be succeeding here. You know, it's the viewership, community's too small, community's dead, game is dead, right? And I would kick back against that very hard. I think what a lot of people don't realize is how esports functions, and whilst I'm not an insider in traditional sports, I imagine there's crossover there. But when it comes to esports, you do not make money outside of there being developer support. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, I mean, there's other games that are way more successful than StarCraft. There are, but the only way that works is through heavily monetized microtransactions within a game. If you do not have that system in place, it does not work. The way esports works, and you think of the big esports, League of Legends, Dota, Counter-Strike, some of the biggest ones that have lasted a long time, but even the ones that are only, they pop up and then they disappear a year or two later, right? Like a Fortnite or something starts running $10 million tournaments. It's marketing budget. And that's essentially how most esports works and thrives, is you create this circuit, it builds community, builds excitement. People are so invested in the game, And when that's where your community and your circles are and you're so involved in it, you're much more likely to want to buy skins, to want to support tournaments, to buy things like war chests in Starcraft. We used to have that were based off the compendium, which Dota did. 25% of that, or 50% in Starcraft, would go towards funding the pro circuit, funding the big world championship. And you could actually see the prize pool getting boosted, you know, by people buying things. And it allowed you to buy cool items in the game, you know, get some rewards, but also be happy to pay a bit extra to get that esports feedback loop. And even outside of that, even if you just have more skins in League of Legends, oh, cool skins, you do tournaments, people are more involved in the game, they buy more skins. And you can always basically say, hey, it's not about selling tickets to big stadiums. It's not like you're running a football team. You're like, well, we had 30,000 people show up every single week for a match for, you know, 6 months of the year, and we sold them a ton of food and beer and you know, sold 50 million jerseys over a 10-year period. You don't have that in esports, right? The content's free. You're not getting TV. You're not getting TV stations paying you for the rights to broadcast it or anything like that. So if you don't actually have some sort of system where you're making money through that microtransactions, I don't know of any successful esport that exists on a big scale like what we had in StarCraft previously and these other really big esport titles outside of that going on. Now, if you guys know of something like that, where there is an esport that somehow is on a massive scale and there is no microtransactions in the game, or there is no product that's being sold and developed, like you can think of something like an Age of Empires 2 someone might bring up. That's a much smaller scene than StarCraft 2. Much smaller, even than what we had in the last year. You look at just prize money alone, let alone the number of lands and the size of them and that sort of stuff. And that still had DLCs and expansions being released and new Civ packs and things like that. And that is part of how you have Microsoft kind of funneling money back into that scene. And that still was much smaller than StarCraft 2. But to have something on the size of a Dota, a CS, or what StarCraft 2 used to have, as far as I know, there is no exception to the rule where it is basically marketing budget for stuff you're selling in the game. So keep in mind, Blizzard stopped funding at the end of 2022. The fact that we even got the big, massive year-and-a-half circuit last year is actually shocking. And I believe it's a big part due to EWC using the circuit and helping subsidize it a bit, along with ESL outlaying some cash of themselves to keep the legacy going, hoping, hey, we've got this big 15-year legacy. Hopefully we can get more sponsors, sell this to another big circuit. And who knows, maybe Blizzard will get back on board and support it at some point. From what I can tell, though, from the outside looking in, obviously I'm not privy to any of these negotiations, it seems like Blizzard does not really care. I've been joking on stream for a long time that the Blizzard Classic Games department that runs StarCraft 2, Heroes of the Storm, Warcraft, and a ton of other games is basically the IT crowd. You've got Bobby Kotick up here. You've got the manager who doesn't actually play any games. I think you've got two really passionate, socially awkward weirdos who are basically stuck in a basement coding all day, trying to manage all of these different games that they don't have the deep expertise in to really know how to efficiently do. They're also meant to be doing patches for games across like 5 different competitive games that obviously they can't know really well. And whilst I am exaggerating the size of the team, I don't think it's actually that far off. The Classic Games department has been kind of isolated to itself for Blizzard, and we've known for a while that basically Blizzard, especially over the Bobby Kotick's leadership, has been more about pump up the quarterly review figures, the quarterly earnings statements, try to get that up, pump it up. You are just there to serve investors. And the idea of keeping an image and building community and having that image of we only put out finished products and we do great stuff, it's just worth so little when you're looking at a quarterly earnings report and the next quarterly earnings report. It's something that matters for a business 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the future. And obviously Blizzard over the last 10 to 15 years has just seemed to not care about that at all. So coming back to this, I think you can basically see, look, Blizzard stopped developing the game actively. They said, we're not going to release any co-op commanders, any more mission packs. Apparently it was profitable, is what we've heard from reports of like, Tim Morton and some of the other people in there, but obviously not the runaway success that Blizzard thought was worth investing more resources, when they could be making a Diablo 4, a Diablo Immortal, when they could be making a microtransaction StarCraft game where you have to pay $4.99 to get a Vespene Geyser pack, which will allow you to make your next go faster rather than waiting 35 minutes to build your next building. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's just, even if they were successful, it wasn't the big moneymaker. So without that microtransaction feedback loop, this has been inevitable. And that's why this whole thing is not surprising. This is why we saw the writing on the wall when Blizzard, stopped supporting StarCraft 2 actively in terms of development, because much like other esports scenes, how are you going to maintain this massive monumental scene with this big circuit and these big live events and flying all this production out, as well as getting pro players there and all this? It's really, really hard to do that without actually having some sort of, really good monetization feedback loop. And selling tickets, selling some jerseys, it's not going to make up for that. A bit of ad money or subscriptions on Twitch and YouTube, it's not going to make up that. That's millions of dollars you got to be making. All right, guys, so what will EWC actually look like, right? Because we've got this announcement. I think you understand now the context of why the ESL Pro Tour probably just wasn't feasible, and it's amazing we got that massive circuit last year. But what is this going to look like? This is the only announcement we have. There's no information on qualifiers or anything like that. The main tournament is scheduled for around July and August. And obviously there's many different games. We were in kind of early to mid-August, I believe, last year for Starcraft. Even if we're towards the end of that in August, it's April now. That's 4 months away. That's not a lot of time to set up a big circuit. And it's unlikely EWC would do that. If they were going to do that, they probably would have just already had some announcement being like, hey, ESL Pro Tour is rebranding to the Esports World Cup Tour or something like that, right? But instead, I imagine there's some sort of qualifiers, and we'll have to just kind of go, okay, there's going to be something to qualify players for it. It still will be a big spectacle and a massive event, and we are really happy to have that, but it is by no means a replacement for having a long circuit with big events like Katowice, with your Dallases, your Valencias, and all these different events, your Jönköpings, all around the world that build into that final year event. And we're going to see a drastic change to the scene now. Okay, so if you're wondering, well, is StarCraft 2 just dead then? Outside of this World Championship, is there going to be nothing to watch? First of all, no. If you like watching StarCraft 2, there's going to be a massive amount of StarCraft 2 to watch. We've already been, for the last 7-8 months, in this spot where we didn't know what was happening. And what have you seen happen? We've seen multiple Chinese events. We've seen Home Story Cups. And there's another one scheduled in 2 months' time in June, late June. We run a massive pig fest the other week. We've got weekly cups, the Pigstarcraft Weekly in the Americas region. Wardy's running the Korean time zone one, the European one run by like Roddy and Steadfast and all these different people. It's changed hands a few times, that one, but you know, essentially there are weekly cups. There are these bigger events and there's all these different intermittent things, but it's grassroots. It's community run stuff. And admittedly, there's not going to be as much prize money with those as having a $100,000 dream hack popping up every few months. Of course, if you want to watch high-level StarCraft, hop on Twitch. There'll still be a ton of games. There'll still be a lot of the best games getting posted on YouTube. I don't see that changing anytime soon. But the community is going to have less events to join up to and actually go to in person to meet up. You're still going to have your Home Story Cups, your Stara Zagoras in Bulgaria. I don't know if there's going to be any American lands for the community, and I am hoping some people in the American community can maybe fill that void, because we have seen passionate crowds at Atlanta. We've seen them in Dallas, and we see the American community is strong and starving for more StarCraft. I'm not saying you can support a massive event, but I think there's room to create a Home Story Cup style event in America, not in a crazy venue, not done for a big budget, but somewhere where you can get the community in and turn it into a real grassroots feel event, something where, you know, it has almost like a fighting game event, FGC community event where you've just got like, it's casual, it's fun, it's not professional, but it's a way for the community to join up. I think there's going to be more onus on that happening now than ever if we want to see the scene feel cohesive and for people to have that kind of joint community feeling where we hang out, we come together and we enjoy StarCraft together. One of the big downsides, of course, of the pro circuit going, pro players are going to have access to less prize money. I don't think any sort of crowdfunding is going to make up for that. I think we've already had a steady stream of retirements over the last few years, and I think there will be a few more, especially if players fail to qualify for EWC, feel they don't have anything big to play for the next however many months or even year until there's another huge prize pool. You're going to see more players retire. I think you're also going to see more players follow the Age of Empires 2 route and go, okay, there's not as much prize money. It's been steadily shrinking. I can't rely on that as much. And you're going to see more hybrid pro players and content creators. You're already seeing people like Harstem and Lambo do more content. I mean, Harstem's become a prodigious content creator. He's doing an amazing job. We're seeing Lambo recently really try and cater to the Zerg player base as well, interact with the community about the design of the game in a really cool and interesting way. And it's cool to see some of his videos pop off. I think we're going to see more players choose to make that step, including your world champions. I think we are going to see more live streaming and potentially even some YouTube videos from your Rainers, your Clems, your Serals. And I really am excited for that because I think that does a massive amount to build community. What I love about the Age of Empires scene is the fact that you can tune into Hera's stream and YouTube all the time. You can stream in, tune into the Vipers content, and you've just got the very best players making a lot of content and really being directly interfacing with their audience in a way you can't get with a lot of bigger esports. There's also going to be more players who are kind of semi-pro, I guess, part-time, playing competitively, but you're not going to have as many who are just like, I just play full-time and I have a salary and I have money I make from winning tournaments. You really are going to have the scene move away from that ultra-professional model to more of a hobbyist model, with a few players who do make a full-time living off it. But it's, I think we really are going to see that gradual shift where it's like, hey, this is a cool hobby and there are players who are still elite at it. And there's still going to be guys like Cyril and stuff who basically can keep competing and clem for as long as they want to, and they'll probably still always be at the top of the scene. But it will be interesting to just see how the rest of the scene revolves and adjusts to this. And I do feel for a lot of the players, because not everyone wants to be a content creator, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be sad to see some of my favorite players playstyle wise say, I don't really want to be a content creator. It's time to move on to the next chapter in my life. One of the kind of sour sweet things about this is I think with the band-aid being ripped off and us no longer being this, is it ending? Or do we have EWC? What's happening? I think now we have a bit of confirmation. We have EWC. We have this big, awesome event to look forward to, and we love that. We really appreciate EWC for it. But also the band-aid's ripped off. There is no more pro circuit. We were so lucky to get what we did with that giant circuit leading into that massive world championship last year. And now that that's gone, I think we can kind of reevaluate and as a community go, hey, we know where we stand and we do not have a big circuit that we can rely on. We can't rely on Big Daddy esports organizer coming in or Blizzard or someone and saying, here's a massive event, get hyped. And also we can't be like, hey, it's smaller than last year's circuit and be all negative about it. I think there's going to be a little bit more, okay, rather than just waiting for there to be a big esports scene popped into our laps, it's going to be on us to make the scene what we want it to be. If we enjoy StarCraft, we're going to have to keep enjoying it. And if you are only here because there was a certain amount of prestige or reputation that you found because of the big prize money and the big circuits run by the big organizers, StarCraft's probably not going to be the game that you want to follow anymore. But for people who genuinely enjoy the game and still like it, I think it's going to be an opportunity here to put even more emphasis on us making and building community and just having fun as enjoyers of the game, whether we're watching or playing and running those community events. I'm hoping we get to see more fun and silly events. I get to see a bit more casual things. You know, if you're not constrained by being a big tournament organizer, being all professional, I want to see more fun formats. I'd like to see more creative map design, more mods potentially running tournaments like they're experimenting within the Chinese and Korean scene a lot at the moment with the Starcraft 1 and Warcraft 3 mods built in Starcraft 2. They're running a ton of tournaments on that, and they seem to just be having a lot of fun trying different things out. I know on my side, we're going to be running another Pigfest later this month. Our last one was really successful. And essentially, I was already like, I don't know what's happening with EWC. They've delayed the announcement so much. I already had said, look, if we raise enough money, which we did, to mostly fund the next Pigfest, we're going to run that as soon as possible before I go to Europe on a trip with my wife in the middle of the year. So we are going to do that at the end of this month in April. We're going to post some more announcements over that over the next few days. I know it's kind of weird to do another Pigfest so quickly, but I really feel like we can make this special. We can make this unique. And I think it's just going to be a really good chance to give the players a chance to get in there, have another big $10,000 or maybe even greater tournament and really just kick some butt. So I really hope you guys can support not just my tournament, but the other organizers out there running the weekly cups, running these other events. We can be positive. We can share some more stuff as well. Like one thing that kind of got me was Pigfest, right? There's great response in my community, but I realized that so many people didn't know about it. Like I remember a few days after the tournament ended, someone posted a clip from it, from the grand finals, and there was all these responses going, what's this from? Oh, what's this? When did Cyril and Clem play a best of 9? And that was kind of shocking to me because I'm like, man, we had like 2 weeks of amazing games. It was so many good games, and there's like this thing's on, and you know, it's people say, well, you didn't market it well enough or whatever. But at a certain point, when you're running a small grassroots esports scene, it's going to be on the community to spread the word and to embrace things that aren't just on the big official channels. We're going to have a lot of cool events springing up from new organizers, and I really hope we can all support each other and just kind of spread the word and have as much fun as possible. Okay guys, so we've talked about how this change with EPT disappearing was inevitable, and I'm surprised it took this long, and that's why it's not a surprise. We've talked about how it's going to change the scene massively, but I also want to once again hit home, dude, the fact that we have EWC, it's going to be a massive tournament, and it is really big, and I hope we are really thankful for it and we have a fantastic time there. It's kind of a shame it came side by side with the negative news of the EPT, but I think as that subsides, we will see some excitement grow over the coming weeks, and it's going to be interesting to see how we adapt as a community to this change. For me, I'm just happy we're not sitting there waiting, going, will we? Won't we? When's it going to happen? What's going to go? I'm happy we're finally just moving to the next thing. There's not this being stuck there waiting, going, what the hell is going on? Don't get me wrong, there's still some small part of me that hopes that Blizzard slowly reorients their ship under Microsoft's leadership and new CEOs and stuff like that, and realizes, hey, we want to make more games in the StarCraft franchise and the Hearthstone franchise and all these sorts of things in the future. Let's actually manage these games well. Let's give Heroes of the Storm some love, give StarCraft some love, give Warcraft some love, and who knows, maybe they'll be like, hey, we're going to fix game-breaking bugs like the Masters League bug, which ruins the experience of every single new player playing StarCraft in 2025. Because there are like a few basic things that just need maintenance, and it doesn't cost a massive amount of development or anything like that. But it's Blizzard's lack of interest in even maintaining their old games that is the one thing that I hope over time does get fixed. And who knows, in some wild fantasy part of my brain, they're like, you know what? We're going to get some esports going, and this is still the biggest RTS competitive scene in the world. Let's freaking go. Let's throw a few $1 million in there. Let's build up our image before we release our next Starcraft game. Let's repair the relationship with the Starcraft community at large. Anyway, I'm not holding my breath for that. That's pure fantasy at this point. For now, I'm just happy to see what we as a community can do. I am feeling blessed that we've had the last 15 years of StarCraft 2 like we had. People have been telling me to get out of StarCraft and it's dying since literally 2014. I remember League of Legends commentator talking to me about this. And he's like, no, you got to get out now, like, you know, jump ship before it sinks. And I was like, I don't know, man. I'm still having fun. I might wait till we're a little underwater. I didn't expect it to go this far, to be fair. And it's still something where, as much as I'm doing a little bit of content around other games, StarCraft's still my main bait. It's still the thing I do most of my content around. And it's you guys as a community watching it, enjoying the games, having fun that allows me to keep doing it. So what can I say? Let's see what the future holds. Let's come together as a community and adjust to this new change in circumstances, support our pro players, our community organizers through it, share some positivity and love. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments your thoughts, your feelings, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye and good night.